today's program, Grace Kent Johnson with Bread, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So Grace is the co-founder, owner, and senior director of Bread. She has a great passion for making Bread the company people call when they need to create a better day for their business or community. Leading her team to develop brands, strategies, and organizational unity to improve the lives of people is her greatest passion. She focuses on surrounding herself with people who share the same vision for originality, passion, and appreciation for unique stories. Once the story is discovered, Grace oversees the team to ensure that all results represent each client with the utmost authenticity. Let's welcome Grace.
Hi, everyone. Okay, Nikki, everybody can see me? We're good now? Okay. I'm talking to myself in a camera, and I'm usually presenting in front of a whole room of people. So new experiences all the time. I'm excited about today. Nikki got in touch with me a few months ago when we were in a major learning phase, and so what I'm going to talk about today, I would not normally talk about. If this was this time last year, this would sound very different. So I've got tons of notes sketched out here in front of me because it's all really been formulating in my mind over the last 2 months as things have just continued to evolve. So I think something that's really important is just to tell you a little bit about who we are, how Bread started and why we started. I love creativity. I love people. I love listening to what makes people special. I love to celebrate things that are special about people. That I'm an encourager. So that's a big part of just who we are as we started, was to encourage people in their uniquenesses and what their story is really all about. So, in the core of who we are, it is based around brand is the essential element, but all companies, brand is the essential part of who they are. So it should be the most important piece to your business, to your organization. And so that's the same thing here. We just get to work with other people on their brand, which is very exciting because we get to hear all kinds of stories. So Bread's really evolved over the years. I guess we're about 3 years old now. And when we started to work with companies, we started noticing that there was a fundamental shift in a lot of the cultures within businesses. And it mainly was just because you had a generation of folks that were kind of going out, and then you had more of a modern group that was in, and then a very technology-based group that was behind them. So we had a traditional, and then a modern, and then a very tech-driven, three different generations. And so with that, there was just a lot of misunderstandings. And so when we were working with organizations and trying to figure out, like, what is your core story? What makes you special and unique? And what is that true brand? Even if it was established, we saw fundamental issues when trying to introduce this story throughout the culture of the brand, with 3 significantly different pockets of people groups. So what that did, that made us go into industrial organizational psychology and organizational development, really working on an in-depth level with cultures, with all levels within an organization. And that's been a tremendous growing experience, and it's been a huge learning experience for us. And we're actually having a lot of fun with that. So once we were working on brand, working with organizational development, then we got into how can we successfully make sure that this gets communicated internally and externally so that the brand and the people were supported. So we have pretty much turned into a business support company in order to identify brand, work through culture issues or healthy cultures and just keeping them moving forward, and then making sure that everything that's expressed internally and externally lives in and through the brand. So it's a little bit about our story. So the topic is the basics of branding for your business. Hashtag rise up. And I'm like, I need some rise up every day. So branding for your business. Normally what I would say is we're going to focus on story today, and we're going to focus on identifying your purpose. And then I have a big arrow on my notes that says, well, but what is branding for your business today? We have seen quite a turn in 6 months. And I'm gonna talk you through that. I'm gonna let you know a little bit of what this major shift looks like. But first, Ben Jones and we were talking about what this presentation was going to look like, and I was just talking and talking and talking, and so he kind of even sketched this thing out. And basically, we decided it's important for you to know the tension and friction. Okay, so probably 10 days ago, I was doing what I normally do on the weekends, which is clean the house. We've got 3 kids. We've got an 8, a 4, and a 2-year-old, and they're gross and they're messy and they're always destroying our house. And I'm going to have to buy new furniture 10, 15 years from now because they're just always destroying everything. So on Saturdays, what do I like to do? I like to just get a clean slate so that we can start on Monday and have a good start to our week. What it was like every time I would go into a room, right? The 2-year-old was like following me and creating a mess behind me. So what did I do? I just locked everybody outside. That's just what you do, right? If you want to clean the house, you lock the husband and all the kids, you just lock everybody outside. So I thought I'd locked everything up, and I just gotten done cleaning the kitchen, and our 2-year-old comes in, and he has a little bit of a temper. He had a bag of Nabs crackers. He's trying to open it with everything in his might. I was not in the room. I just mopped that whole floor so everything's wet. And he starts beating the crackers on the table. And so now I've got big Ritz crackers, half Ritz crackers, quarter Ritz, down to teeny tiny pieces of Ritz cracker all over my house. So I walk in because I'm trying to do something that's normal to our routine. I'm trying to do something that I can check off the box, right? Something that can give me a gratifying moment of getting something completed in a way that I have been doing this for the last few years. So I come in and I literally, for the first time ever, I yell out loud, and I got my fist and I just gripped them as hard as I could, and I just got so mad and I just yelled just so loud. I was so frustrated. I'm tired of the resistance. It's the tension that happens within you. So we're going to get back to the rest of that story because it's always very interesting. So that's what I want to talk about today, is basically branding inside of the moments of tension. In the moments of I just want to do what we have always done. I'm tired of cleaning up or figuring out all of these messes and the chaos around me. I would like to not have tension in a moment of building brand for our business. Now, on the flip side of that, what we have seen during this time is that people don't have another choice than to take a moment to pause and to truly, some of those moments where people go out and you're freezing, right? You huddle around your core. The last 6 months have caused people to huddle around their core. Clients that we've had for years, they're doing this. People that we're just now getting in touch with these 6 months, they're running to a core moment of relief because everything around them is chaos. Everything around them is causing friction and tension. So building any type of brand for your business right now, it all starts with one primary thing, no matter if there's crisis or not, and that's your story. The story of bread is very sweet to me. The story of bread is centered around one thing, and it's our core values. We've continued to evolve these values, but when we establish a value, we realize that this is something really powerful, and we have to hold on to this because there's not a lot of pure things that are around us, but we do know that our brand values are very pure. So what does that really mean? What does story and values, how do you identify your values just from your story? So, brand, truthfully, is what I told y'all about bread earlier. It's our story. How I find the values inside of who bread is our passion points. Okay, so as bread continued to evolve, what were the moments, the passion points that we had that I can run to in order to develop and determine my values? So, what do I mean by that? When we saw that communities within a business, cultures, whatever you want to call them, we call them communities, because inside, right, a business, you're developing your own community. When we saw the chaos inside of a community, we realized that unity was a huge value to us. We as a company want our company to be unified. And because of that, this organizational development became a big part of who we were, because we saw how it can strengthen and unify a business. Unity is a core value of bread. It's something that we can't take away from who we are. And it determines what we do here every day, internally and externally, how we communicate to one another. We show one another grace and compassion and care while still driving one another, because unity is meaningful to us. It's a value to us. So that's just one way. And then I actually wrote our values on this card. I didn't do slides because I don't know. I'm over slides right now. So we call it the bread cue, right? A cue is a signal. So we value our signal here is the cue: creativity, unity, and excellence. What I'm going to help y'all do hopefully today is how to establish some core values based on your story, which is your brand, that you can always run to in moments of tension and friction and chaos, that you can center around, that will help you with all your directions and decisions that you make moving forward. So, we have this kind of, what we're calling it is, you have the typical identity development project, and that's what we call who you are. It's your identity, right? So your story is who you are, therefore it is your identity. So you have a typical identity brand building process, but then you have your current, right? Like we're living in this for today, how to build brand today when you're being pushed to the brink every single day. When you walk in and you thought you're going to have all your employees there, and all of a sudden all the people that were around this one person that can't come to the office right now you're going to lose a whole staff for 2 weeks. Okay. That's not typical, right? So that's in this pushing to the brink, running in and seeing your kids destroying everything that you just did, right? Like this is being pushed to the brink constantly. So there's two different routes that we can take when you get pushed to that. You can feel defeated, right? Like we can run to defeat, I feel defeated, or we can run to building our brand and then centralizing ourselves on the actual brand itself. So here are just 3 specific ways that we can do that. Okay. I'm going to tell you and teach you how to find it, how to believe it, and how to pursue it. Find it, believe it, pursue it. Okay. Core values. As an organization, as a business, or as an individual, I look on this list of people that are watching today, and you might not be able to influence an entire university today. You can't influence an entire university. You might not be able to influence an entire organization today, or an institution or a community. You can't do that today. But what you can do is influence your own brand. So when you think about your own story and how you've continued to evolve as a person, think about the things that build up your character, that build up who you are when you walk into a space, when other people aren't influencing you. If you can determine your true values of who you are, you will impact the people around you in your day. Okay. So we have a lot of organizations that will come to us and they need to just fix a certain area of their culture, of their brand. And what we help them understand is that you are a small piece of a bigger puzzle. How you can influence that part of your brand is determined by the values that you bring into that space that day. So, as a team, as a smaller group, I'm going to give y'all a 90-day challenge in just a minute, but y'all need to come together. And that's what we love about the word bread. Bread gets people around a table, right? Breaking bread together and assemble a piece. Get your team around a table. Y'all need to decide as a group, what do we value here? Not what do we sell, not what do we do every day, not what do we create here every day. It's completely irrelevant to this topic. What do we actually value today? When COVID hit, everybody scrambled, right? They couldn't do the things that they always did the way that they always did them. But when I would always ask them, okay, hang on, let's slow down for a minute. Can you remember why you actually love what you're doing? Can you remember why you got into this in the first place? Go back even further than that. Tell me a little bit about the story about why you even started this company or why you even started working here. What do you love about it that you get excited about? Let's figure out the value in that we bring to people's lives. So once we can help you identify with just that core value of who you are, what this team can bring to people, not about the stuff, right? It's just about the core value. Then I have something I can always go back to so that when a crisis hits again, we can say, okay, guys, let's stop what we're doing. Let's go back to those core values again to determine how we're going to be moving forward and why. Why are we moving forward this way? So that's that find it. Okay, get into a group of people, your team, and find your values. You just need 3. Let's just come up with 3. If you have 7 values, that is way too many. Let's just try to concentrate on 3 core things that we value as an organization or as a team. As a team, and that can be just 2 of you, or just as an individual. Like, what is that core value system look like? So find it. Number 2 is believe it. We'll get a soapbox here moment. Believe in who you are. Believe in what makes you unique, and believe that that is something special that only you can fulfill. So as a team, don't make up excuses of why you're sorry because you can't communicate with everybody out there on the planet. That doesn't matter. What we need to do is find your value, and then y'all have got to believe it as a team. Believe it as an organization. They can't take that away from you. If you don't believe it, they'll know. People will know, and they will not trust you. But if you know what you value, and if you show them how deeply you believe in that, and you're unwavering with it, that's really, really, really special. And you'll start to build a whole lot of trust with all your touch points. But if you don't believe it, then I would say you might not be in the right position. You might not be in the right place. You've got to be in a place that you believe in the values and the core values and the core system of what you're doing every single day. Because remember, the goal is to make people have a better day. But if I don't know how to find what I value, because I can't come together as a team, and I don't believe it, then you'll never be able to do the next one, which is to pursue it. If I can find those values as a team, come together, get around the table, right? If I can then believe those values to be true and nothing but those values, I'm gonna put everything I've got into these values. You have to walk in and out every single day pursuing that. It's not like, okay, we got our values, we're going to stick them on the wall, we're going to put them in the conference room, we're going to put them in the break room, we're going to put them all over the building. That does no good. You have to believe it, and you have to pursue it constantly. It's not a casualness to it. It's got to be, there's got to be somebody on the team that manically pursues those values. So creativity, unity, and excellence. If you're not creative, Brett, you're not going to feel comfortable at Brett. If you don't care about the unity of our team and the unity within other organizations, this is not going to be the place for you. And if you don't do everything with excellence to the best of your ability, you're not going to feel comfortable here. In March, when things started to happen, we went back to creativity, unity, and excellence. We stopped worrying about what we were doing or the doingness of the doing, what we were manufacturing that day. It had nothing to do with that. It said, hey, let's make sure that we continue to value creativity, unity, and excellence in this time. And because of that, it's brought us closer together as a team. We feel better every day that we come in here. And it continues to make our business more successful because we know what we value. So you have to pursue it, pursue it, pursue it. Find it, believe it, pursue it. You want me to show it to you one more time? Just because I can, because I have a sheet of paper here and just because I wanted to write on it this morning. Find it, believe it, pursue it. Okay, so when you do those things, so we had probably right now, some of you are thinking, well, nobody's ever really told me the story of this company. It's never been identified to me. I don't really know much about it. What I would say is from this talk, what you're going to do, you're going to go back to your leadership, or maybe you are the leader. And it's okay if you haven't done this yet. It's totally fine. Because guess what? 90% of the businesses out there in the universe, they don't do this. They don't take the time to figure out their story, right? So I'm going to, got a little arts and craft thing happening right now. So in 90 days, okay, something that was unidentified, my story is going to be identified. So this is one of your 90-day challenges, okay? That's your first 90 days. Second, maybe your story and your values have just been miscommunicated, okay? Take my little time here, get my little fold. I was ripping it off, but I'll do it a little bit faster. Story and values are going to be communicated. In 90 days, you are going to identify your story. Story is going to be identified. And your story and your values are going to be communicated internally and externally. Extremely powerful. Extremely, extremely, extremely powerful. Businesses in the last 6 months that have not been successful is because they have not stopped. They've not concentrated on this. Identifying your story and your values and then communicating them. I get it, right? I get it. I have moments of freak out all the time, but my team keeps me steady because they know the values that we hold true here. Something that Dr. Sam Jones says all the time is create a sense of urgency. Everybody's pretty urgent right now to get out of what we are, right? Like we would just like a normal day. We do have a sense of urgency, but what he means by that, and what we mean through a sense of urgency in branding is the things that I just held up here make this urgent. If you don't make this urgent, if you don't make this important, you will continue to spiral and you'll never strengthen your brand. But if you discover your story and find those values, believe them and pursue them, and be urgent about that, you will strengthen your company in ways that you never have before. You'll build a team stronger than you ever have been able to before. And then you're actually going to show up and probably have a little bit of fun at the office. So I'm going to go back to my story, okay? So after the huge yell, let me check my time. Yep, we're doing fine. After the huge yell, right, in the kitchen, I could have done two things. I could have shut down and I could have just walked out. I could have just put everything down. I could have just walked out of the house and I could have taken a walk around the block. And look, hey, sometimes that's needed, right? Like we all need to just take a breather. We need to take a moment. But if you do that, or if you choose to stand there and take a minute Breathing is important, right? In those moments of tension and friction, this is what happened. I looked at my 4-year-old daughter who was crying at that point because she just saw her mom lose it, right? Like I lost it in those moments of tension and friction because my values were being challenged, my normal was being challenged, and I lost it in that moment of tension. She's crying. I sat on the floor. The 2-year-old came up, the 4-year-old came up. My husband and the 8-year-old, they knew better. They just stayed outside, which was very smart of them. But I sat on the floor and we talked about it. I did not want to feel defeated for long. And I wrote this down. This was something that I really thought through, is that feeling defeated, it really is, it's just temporary. But if you believe it, if you believe that you're defeated, that's when you give it power to become permanent. Don't believe that you're defeated. Everybody's exhausted and there's tension moments, but what's important is when you stop. You don't have to sit on the floor with your team because that would be a little odd. But if you want to, hey, it's up to you. But if you can just stop, get your team together, sit around the table, say, hey guys, what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on building our brand. That's going to be like a shock. And then you, if you're the leader and you're listening or whatever, if you're leading in the moment of trying to establish and find your values, just get everybody feeling comfortable and you just sit back and listen. It needs to be a very safe space for people to know that you do value them in order for values to even be established. And I'll say, don't put everybody in a room. Don't have a room full of 10 or 15 people, right? Make it small, make it very intimate. Start with 4 at the most. And then you can start, having these small groups of 4, identifying who we are, what is our story, and what do we truly value here. Once you do that in those small groups, you calm everybody down. You say that finding something in the midst of the crisis by coming together is really important. And this is a time that we want to be successful as a company. Therefore, we have to be unified together. And in order for that to happen, get everybody around the table and talk through your values, what it is that you value there, and then come up with the base of 3. So we're not going to feel defeated because our brand is all over the place. We're going to sit down, we're going to find it, believe it, and pursue it. And at the understanding of this, people are kind of like, I still don't understand how to figure out my values. That's okay. Y'all just talk about your story. It's funny. We'll be with some people and they say, oh yeah, one of our longest employees, she's been here for 22 years. Oh man, I got to go talk with them. And you'll go up to that person and say, hey, so tell me a little bit about the story of this place. And they'll have no idea as to why the company started. They just know what they do every day and how it made them feel, which is important, but they don't actually have any deep connection to this organization because nobody's taken the time to sit down with them to tell them about, do you know why we started as a company? Did you know that the needs that we came across to even start, or as a university, or as a large organization, or just as a little bitty store, do you sit down and say, hey, look, let me tell you about this day that I had a crazy idea to start this, or this, or this, or why this part of a university even started? If you don't know that, I don't know how you can go to work every day. I got to know, what is the story of this place? What does it value? So that I know how to continue in those values to make this place successful. That is the only thing I'm trying to teach today, is to run to your values. And if you don't know them, you got to find the person that does. And then you need to come together as a group to understand why they exist and what they really mean. Not vanilla values. Vanilla values, they're not deep enough. They're not they're not rich enough. To say that we value unity, that's not easy here. We have to stop a lot and say, okay, let's go back to that core value of unifying as a team or as a community or whatever, and figure out why this decision, if we choose to make it or not, will it actually live up to that value of unity? So you have to know those things. So we're going to not feel defeated. We're going to pursue that. And we're going to go through this practice and exercise of figuring out your core values by discovering and understanding your story. Okay. So I go back in, right, and I sit down with my kids and I tell them the truth. Guys, y'all are driving me crazy. Mommy needs a win. Like, I just need a win. I need to come in here. I need to please just clean up the house all together. And then after I'm done, can we please like talk about what we're going to be doing? And if we want to have a huge pallet on the floor and watch a movie and there's popcorn everywhere, I'm okay with that. But I just need to get through a process. And it was crazy because my 2-year-old and 4-year-old were like, yeah, okay, we understand now. I'm like, okay, well, I feel better. They feel better. That moment of tension is gone. And now they can see what I actually valued. Like, mommy just needs a win, right? They know what was important to me in that moment. And then this is going to be the outcome past that point. And so sit down with people around the table, discover those values. Another big thing here is that you're not going to be able to discover your values on your own. It's basically impossible. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, what do you want to eat tonight? Well, what do you want to eat tonight? Oh, I'll take whatever. And then somebody says something and you're like, oh, I really don't want that. You get it. When you're going through your values, you have to spitball these things. That's why team is everything. Collaboration is huge, especially when you're doing this video stuff. Like I'm basically talking to myself. It's like the driest thing ever because I don't have community around me. I have no collaboration here. You cannot do this on your own. Okay, you've got to develop your values as a team together. So have this intimate community. Who is your intimate community that you're going to bring around the table? And then you got to turn to your core, turn to your story. And that's where you're really going to find your true brand. Brand is nothing more than your story. And right now, during a crisis, if you can identify your story and your values, you'll be successful. You truly will. We see it time and time again. There's a few extra little things that I could throw in here. Team assessments. Basically, you have a clean slate moment, whether you know it or not. Do team assessments. We have a few different assessments we do for a lot of cultures, but it really helps with stripping people down and then strengthening them back up. And then when we're educating them on who they are, their strengths, their weaknesses, so on and so forth, we can then take that opportunity to tell them the story of the company or the organization or so on and so forth, of the community. And it's a full strengthening exercise. So during these 90 days, you could do a team assessment and you could be telling the stories while doing a values development exercise. Have a sense of urgency, as Dr. Jones continues to tell people. If you don't know what to be urgent for, how can you be productive in your day? How can you be productive with your own strengths if you don't even know what you're supposed to be urgent for? Again, these values will help you understand. If it is about creativity, unity, and excellence, all those together, our Q, if I can see our Q established, I know I need to be urgent to that because that aligns with our values. And then today, in moments of tension and crisis or urgency, have a kitchen culture cleanup. Sit down, take a minute after you spew everywhere, right? Because I feel like most everybody has. We've lost it. If you haven't, kudos to you because it's been tense, right? Have a kitchen culture cleanup moment. Sit down, get everybody around the table, establish those values, hear the stories, and go from there. So, and I have something cheesy right here, which is defeat is temporary unless you believe it, and then you give up. So rise up, right? Which is the speaking platform for this. So I think I'm at my time. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, here's a question. How can we use our values to differentiate a business from our competitors? Okay, this is the coolest part ever. That's such a good question. Your values are not, your story is not your competitor's story. It just is not. There is no way that two people can have the exact same story. Okay. So tell it. So communicate it. Your story miscommunicated is your fault. You need to be the one to tell your story. You need to be the one to tell what you value. You need to communicate. Don't have some fancy website that looks like everybody else's website. If you and your competitor, if you put your websites right next to each other and they look the exact same, you lost. Because I don't feel any connection to your brand at all. But if I go to your website and it talks about our story, not some vanilla paragraph, the face of the founder, why he founded this, and why it was important. And then you come in with a leadership team that is active. Maybe the founder has been long gone for 10 years. Get him back. Hear the story. Tether it to the leadership of today. Tell them, my hope is that it's true. Like, well, you have to have a true connection or people will be able to tell. And as soon as people can tell that you're faking it, you've lost. That true, genuine connection. Tell the story of what was founded. Tell the story of this new leadership and the reason why they value the same things. Your values can evolve, okay? It doesn't have to be the exact same words. Evolve your values. But when you're you can't compete with that. You can't compete with that. You cannot compete with somebody else's story. Their story is their story. And if you haven't lived out your core values internally, people will be able to tell. The healthier your organization is, the more desirable you will be over your competition. Let's say that your competition can yield, the ROI is better on this one than for you. But how healthy is the organization? What is the risk of your brand compared to their brand? There's dysfunction. Nobody really knows the story of this place. Nobody really knows what they value when they come here. But in this company, half the size, they are healthy. They know their values. They know what they represent. They know their story. And you walk in, and I'm on the elevator riding up with somebody, and I get off. Well, guess what? I've probably interacted with 3 people. Did they each tell the same story? If they did, people can't compete with that. So it's a great question. What are your thoughts on bringing someone into my team who doesn't currently reflect the established values, but has the skill set and seems to be open to one day sharing the values of the organization? My honest opinion is you don't hire those people. Dr. Levon Gray, he has this one saying that we tell people all the time: when's the best time to fire somebody? And it's the first time you think of it. If on the first day you think, oh man, they were a great hire because they're really skillful, but man, are they a pain because they don't line up to who we are with our values. That first day you think, well, that was a bad hire. You gotta let them go. I mean, the first time you think about firing somebody, he says, that's when you fire them. Don't hire somebody that does not align with your values. I would say you need to do the flip of that, right? You look for the values before you look for the skill set. Because if they value what you value, there's probably opportunity for them to grow in that skill. Can you give some tips on how to tell your story on social media? Yes, we love social media. Whether you personally like it or you don't like it personally, it doesn't matter. If you're not on social media and you're a business, you got to be there, no matter what. If you don't have a robust website and social media and all your digital strategies don't align, at this point, I don't know how you're going to survive. But can you give tips on how to tell your story? Yes, honesty. I think that's the basis of all of it. People think that the emotional stuff needs to stay away from business. I would say the opposite. You need to tell the emotion of where your story came from, because people don't connect or build relationships with facts and figures. I tell people all the time, like, you don't marry the person that you marry. You don't have the relationships that you have because they line up on all the facts. That's not what establishes a genuine connection. So in order for you to win over your competition, people have to genuinely connect with who you are, your actual story, through emotion and through your values, in order for them to want to belong to what you've got going on. So that genuine connection is powerful. So on social media, that's a huge platform where you can have that customer service, that back and forth with people. Now, let's say that you are an organization that cannot have that rapport, or maybe you're too large of an organization to provide that type of customer service. That's fine. I mean, if you want to be a one-way conversationalist on social media platforms, we work with that. I mean, we do some of that just because of some requirements for liability reasons. But you can still tell your story. Beautiful photography, beautiful video, but show them what you value when you are communicating on social media. I get so tired of just a veil when I see people communicating and they look just like their competition. Take the opportunity to take a photo of your founder, tell the story of your founder, spread it out. Spread out that story. You don't have to give it all away at once, but thread it through. People need to be genuinely connected to who you are and what you believe. And people still want to invest in other people's stories. So that's what we tend to make sure is always there. It's important to tell about your services and what you can provide and things that you can do for people. But take that time once a month and just stop. Find it, believe it, pursue it. Have a brand moment where you just focus on your story and what you value. That's really important. What types of issues or questions does your office receive from businesses, especially since the pandemic? What do we do now? One of the biggest things is, oh my goodness, we cannot do the things that we used to always be able to do. So we're stuck, we're going to fail, we're not going to succeed. We're just going to crumble up, right? Absolutely wrong. What is it that you value? And maybe it's putting delicious meals on people in front of people. Cool. Let's just come up with a different strategy of how to do that. Or, I love doing accounting for people. Awesome. Well, I can't do it the same way I've always wanted to do it. Who cares? Let's figure out a creative way of doing it, but just make sure it aligns with our story and who we are and our values. Let's just do a different way of doing that. Fun. I mean, that can be creative. That can be fun. Let's do that. I mean, a lot of times it's a tension moment of, I just want to do right. I want to just clean the house. We have always cleaned the house and it for not to be destroyed. I just want to check it off the box. That's easier, right? That's the easier thing to do. Right now, things are not easy. But if we can take a minute, take some breaths back, establish a team mentality. You cannot do this on your own. That's a big, big, big thing that we've tried to do with organizations, and it's worked beautifully. You got to establish a collaboration between all of you. You're not going to be able to do things the same way. You got to be more of a team now than you ever have before. But that's really the big thing about the pandemic is I just can't do things the way that I always want to do, and I just want to do it the way I always want to do it. Okay, I get that, but maybe there's a need that you have seen in the last 5 to 10 to 3 to 2 years, and you've always kind of wanted to poke on that need because it does align with your values. Sweet, let's expand the business and let's try something new that we know fits with our values, that we have a whole team here at the office or around us that can satisfy those needs. Let's do that. And then if we need to bring somebody else in that can help satisfy those needs that our clients are now having, it aligns with our story and our values. Let's do it. I mean, that's at the end of the day, fear is healthy. Healthy fear is healthy, right? But having fear instead of a sense of urgency, like Dr. Jones continues to say, he's like, man, it's a sense of urgency that we must feel in order to fulfill our purpose. We have to feel like we are urgent in order to feel like we're headed towards something. It's the same thing here. Businesses feel stuck because they're not willing to pursue something because they don't know what the heck they're supposed to be pursuing, because they don't know who they are. They know what they do every day, but they don't know why they do it. So at the core, what we've had to do is slow them down. What is your story? What do you value? Okay. What's something that y'all thought about doing that you continue to see a need in your clients? Give me all the reasons why we should do that. I don't want to talk about why we shouldn't. Let's talk about all the reasons why we should do that. What are the things that we got to do in order to make that happen? But it satisfies the brand, it satisfies our values, and let's do it. I think that's one of the biggest things is, hey, help us establish a strategy to successfully move past this point, because we can't do things the way that we've always done. Great. We see success. If you want to change in order to continue to be successful and grow, awesome. Let's talk about the brand. Let's talk about what you value. Let's do an assessment of your team. Let's see what we have to work with. Let's look at the toolbox. Then from there, what are some of the needs that you're seeing right now for the past few years that you've never pursued because you don't have the time to do it? Now is the time. Let's change things up. Let's adjust. That's the way you're going to be successful. You have to be hyper focused on this right now. Before you can kind of delay, you can't delay anymore. You have to be, you got to do a kitchen cleanup with urgency. Okay. You got to move quick. You got to be smart. You got to see the needs. You got to know your story. You got to know your values. You got to work succinctly as a team. You got to change. You got to grow. You got to adjust. If you do not change and grow and adjust, you will not be successful in 2 years. End of story. You have got to change, grow, and adjust. If you're doing the same thing today that you were doing 12 months ago, I would say you're not moving towards success. Brands that can establish who they are, rest on those values, and grow from that, you will be successful. We see it time and time and time and time again. So grow, change, adjust, but stay true to who you are and true to those values.